I'm sorry, John, I must disagree with you here. 15 to 20% for a woman to be optimized to grow muscle? Coach Greg, today I'm going over a video by John Meadows, and it's titled, Should You Bulk or Cut? It's simple. I can't wait to see. Is John Meadows also against bulking?
Back when I started in the 80s and 90s, you never heard the terms clean bulk, dirty bulk. Like, those terms didn't even exist. There was only one way to do things. You bulked up and then you got cut. Like, there was no other way to do it. And the way that you bulked up, it didn't really matter. You just ate as much as you could possibly eat. It's a method that I call the power shove method.
I called it force feeding. Did I ever do that? Yes. When I was a kid, just like John Meadows in the 80s and 90s, well, for me, I'm a little bit younger. It was in the 90s. We used to bulk up, as in eat as much food as you can to try to pack on the muscle because that's what we were told. How would I know any better? I was a teenager. I don't know any better. Teenager, early 20s, didn't have all the science, so I would eat as much as possible, get as huge as I could, and then I would cut for bodybuilding. Did this number of times every single year. Remember, I did 59 shows. I used to compete multiple times a year. John did the same thing when he was younger. It didn't work. Did it pan out? How did it do? Did it work?
And that was just the way we did things. Now, the interesting thing is, so some people, they eat nonstop, but they really don't gain any weight. You know, those people just have fast metabolisms. I was one of those people. So I could say I was dirty bulking, but the reality was I was getting all the calories in I could, and I still couldn't gain any weight. So I don't even really call that dirty bulking. You're not even in a caloric surplus.
Exactly. If you're eating as much food as you can and you're not gaining any weight, you're not technically bulking. You're actually maintaining. Even though you're eating a shit ton of calories, if you're not gaining any weight, you're actually on a maintaining diet. So you're actually maintaining. Okay, you might say you're force feeding 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 calories. Even if you are, that's maintenance. If you're not gaining weight, you are maintaining your weight. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter!
If you're eating a shit ton of food or hardly any food at all. If you're maintaining your weight, you're maintaining your weight.
2000, I competed in the Mr. USA out in Las Vegas, and I got 8th place. I was pretty happy with how I looked. So the off season in 2000, I had got up to about 240 pounds. Really liked the way I looked when I got to the show, which was I was around 212 pounds, if I remember right, 211, 212. And then in 2001, I bulked up to 260. And in order to get to 260, I had to eat nonstop. I remember I had a corporate job at the time. I remember my desk drawer had boxes of Pop-Tarts. It had pork rinds. I mean, everything you can think of. And I ate nonstop. I got up to 260. So anyways, I got to 260, and then I had to diet down really hard because I had gained a lot of fat. I was wearing 40-inch waist pants.
He got up to 260. He said he looked so round. He was huge. He was fat. He wasn't always ripped. And then he dieted again. What happened?
And what happened was I got down to I ended up weighing about the same that I did the year before, but I actually looked worse.
So does bulking look like it worked for John Meadows? Clearly not. 2001, he's explaining the story. I'm not making shit up.
I had to diet so hard, my body just had kind of this tiring out.
When you bulk up and get extra fat, you have to diet extra hard to get rid of that unwanted body fat. That's hard. It's hard on the system. Tires you out, makes it hard to train, and then he competed the next year and looked worse. What about Coach Greg? Have I ever, in fact, bulked before? And if so, what were the results? Yes, I, in fact, did it on numerous occasions because just like John Meadows, I thought that's how it worked. So when I, in fact, dieted down, guess what happened? I had to suffer harder than last time. I had to do more cardio to get the weight off. It was a longer journey. Instead of taking 12 weeks, no problem, 16 weeks, more problems. More fat, more problems. Y'all think more money, more problems? More fat, more problems.
And I never really did that bulking up again. And I continued through the years to increase my body weight, particularly in 2011, 2012, when I think you guys have heard the story, my competition weight shot up into 220s. And my off-season weight was only like 230, 232.
So he stopped bulking, and from that moment on, he got better and better. He only got to 235 for his next bulk. And then 10 years later, 2011, his off-season weight only got up to about 235 pounds, yet competed in the 220s. That's less than a 15-pound gain from off-season to on-stage. That means he stays in tremendous condition. Does that mean he's 5% body fat year-round? No. Do I claim you should be shredded year-round all the time? No. What do I say? I say, choose a weight that's healthy for you, that you have energy to train for. It's different for everyone. For you, it might be 10%. It might be 15%. Maybe it's 20%. Get to that percent that's healthy and gives you energy to train. If you can't train hard, if you're starving, you don't feel good, you're too lean. When I get below 8%, I don't function properly. I don't feel good at all. I'm 9% now. Feel great. I go to the gym, plenty of energy. For John, he says 8 to 12%, maybe 12, 13. That's what you want to be for a man. That's the best optimization. I argue, John is a little strict here. I say you can gain more fat than that. For me, 15% body fat for a man is perfectly healthy. So I would, in fact, be more lackadaisy than John Meadows. I say you can actually be a bit chubbier than what John's recommending.
I began to kind of see some things, and maybe that old style of bulking and cutting probably wasn't the best.
From the man himself, John Meadows. We see eye to eye on a lot of things, most things, in fact.
What I come to realize is I think there's this ideal state that you're in to grow the fastest. And I think for most guys, it's probably somewhere between 8% body fat on the low end to maybe 12 or 13%, maybe 15%, but probably more like 12 or 13%.
I'm going to argue that maybe it's closer to 20% for some men. Guys who are endomorphs, born with more fat cells, it's harder then to be lean. You need to have energy to train hard. If you're a guy and you're 16% and you don't feel good and it's not made for you, it's just not in your genetics. You need to have more body fat to feel good, okay? It would be great if we could all be 15% or less and feel fantastic, but unfortunately that's not in the cards for most guys. Now, is it?
And I think for a woman, it's probably somewhere around 15 to 20% would be what I would observe in terms of this ideal state.
I'm sorry, John, I must disagree with you here. 15 to 20% for a woman to be optimized to grow muscle? For most women, 15 to 20% is shredded. It's extremely lean. 15 to 20% for most women, likely underweight. We don't want to encourage people to have amenorrhea. We don't want women losing their periods. I would say for most women, ideal, probably 18 to 30%. Yeah, you think I'm a hater and I'm all for people being ripped and I hate on people who are overweight. Yet I encourage people to have more body fat than even John Meadows encourages. So John is saying, try to be 8 to 12% for men and then introduce a slight calorie surplus. And then it's okay if you gain a little bit of fat because you're already pretty freaking shredded. Like I'm 9%, so John would love to coach me. I'm 9%. He would have me in a slight calorie surplus. And then if I gain enough fat that I get to 15, then he would have me cut and get a mini cut. What does Coach Greg say? Main gain. If you're happy at 9% and you get to 10, slow it down already. Why do you have to get up to 15%? Stay with what makes you happy. If you're at 12%, don't try to think, I need to add 500 calories. If you do so, you're probably going to gain a half a pound or a pound of fat in a week. You don't need that. Small, teensy, wincy surplus. 100 calories at most. You really don't need more than that.
And then if you're under that range, let's say you're 5% body fat, then you're obviously you don't want to be super, super, super lean. Hormonally, it's just not real good for your endocrine system to be that lean all the time. Also, your joint integrity, if you're that lean, sometimes you're at risk for injuries just due to your joints.
And if you're too lean, obviously creates problems. Endocrine system. You're going to get injured more. You can't train as hard. It just doesn't feel good. You can't sleep. Testosterone levels are lower and so on. It's not good. You eat more till you get into that healthy range. So when you do a bodybuilding show like Coach Greg, you get down to maybe 5% or less. You don't stay there year-round. It's a mistake. You need to go back up to what makes you happy. For me, I'm at 9% and I'm happy. For you, maybe it's 19%. Maybe it's 14%. We don't know that magic number. You slowly add calories until you get to that steady state where your body's happy to grow and maintain that. Small calorie surplus, not a big one.
Now, how big of a surplus? Well, here's the thing that people miss. Muscle can only grow so fast.
If you add 500 calories and you gain a certain rate and you go up to 1,000, you're not gaining any quicker, so why bother? All you're doing is speeding up the fat building process. Also, if you increase calories too much, 2,000 more, 3,000 more, and you get too fat, it can in fact hurt your ability to add muscle. You're too obese, your insulin sensitivity goes down. You're not able to use the PDs that you're using as effectively. And remember, as fat as you become, that's fat you have to then remove later on, which is going to make it harder to build muscle in the dieting down process.
Let's say you bump up to 4,000 calories and you're still growing. Does that mean 4,500 calories you're still going to grow as much muscle as fast? No, you may not grow any more muscle because you can only grow so fast.
Adding 200, 300 calories a day, that's plenty. You can only grow so fast. So why add 2,000 when 200 has the same effect without all the negative side effects and that being getting friggin' fat?
Or else we could all just eat 10,000 calories and be massive. But that's not how the body works. You can only accumulate muscle tissue so fast. So eating beyond that makes no sense at all.
John Meadows is saying it. I don't even have to say it. We just let him say it.
So let's say the person at 3,000 calories goes up to 3,500 and they're gaining muscle and maybe a little bit of fat. So if they go to 4,000 calories, maybe they'll gain no muscle and it'll be all fat.
So if you're eating 3,000 calories at maintenance, you go to 3,500 and you're gaining muscle and fat, well, if you get too fat, then you have to then lower those calories now, don't you? Because you're not in that optimal range, which John says is around 8 to 12, 13%. I'm saying it might be a bit higher, but it makes sense. So why even add the 500 in the first place if it's going to put you out of that range? You don't need to say, oh, in 6 weeks, I'll see if I'm out of the range. No, in a week, you can look in the mirror and say, am I getting fatter? And if you are, eat less food. 500 extra calories, more than enough for anyone, even a newbie gainer who's going to gain muscle faster than ever before because they're a newbie gainer. Even if you're on PDs and you're growing at an exponential rate, you don't need more than a 500 calorie surplus. You just don't. You don't. I know you think if you eat 2,000 calories a day, you're going to gain more muscle more quick. And you try it, your friends do, and you say, well, look, you gained 50 pounds. But it's mostly fat and water. It's not actual muscle tissue. They could have had a 500 calorie surplus instead of the 2,000, gained just as much muscle without the unwanted excess body fat that they then have to diet off later on. Don't forget, it's not healthy to be obese and force feed. So why would you do something unhealthy and require force feeding, being uncomfortable, when the end result is you're just going to have to diet it off in the first place?
And as you advance up in a scale in terms of how close you are to your genetic potential, now it's even harder to gain muscle. So now that number that was 500 calories, it might be 300.
So oddly enough, the more experienced, the more advanced you are, the bigger you are, the less gains you have left in the tank, the less of a surplus you actually need. You think it's the opposite. People are saying, oh, I'm a pro. The only way I can grow is on a 2,000 calorie surplus. It's in fact the opposite. If you're already near your genetic limit, you can only grow so fast at this rate, so you need an actual smaller deficit to create that growth.
Say you're a guy and you get up into that 16, 17% body fat range. You remember I said I want to get you in that ideal state. So now, how do you get back down to the ideal state? So now you do a little mini cut. Now, this should be easy because you're not 25%. You kind of kept everything in check.
So what if you already made the mistake and you gained a bit too fat? Thing happens, life gets in the way. Lose the weight slowly. Don't freaking diet your ass off. Stop with the 1,000 calorie cuts. A slow and small deficit. Maybe a pound a week. The slower you lose the weight, the more energy you're gonna have and the better you're gonna feel while dieting. You try to cut the weight too quick, which is what most people do. You feel like shit. And then you end up in the yo-yo diet zone. Quit with the yo-yo, and instead of all of this, just main gain like Coach Greg says to do, which essentially is pretty much what John Meadows is saying, except he's saying you can gain a few pounds and lose it back down, and then gain a few and then lose. Just keep the weight where it is, and if you notice you gain a few pounds, just stop. Stop the madness. It's easier than it looks. He even put in his own title. It's simple. It's simple because it is. But people are trying to confuse you. Bulk and cut and this and that. And oh my goodness, people, just try to main gain.
The question becomes, how do you get back into the deficit? Do you get really aggressive with your caloric restriction? Do you cut your calories 25%, 35%? Well, I would tell you that that's too aggressive. And the reason why is because the higher that deficit becomes, the more likely you are to lose muscle. And you don't want to lose muscle. It's simply too hard to build.
If you lose it slower than last time, you won't be losing the muscle. You try to get greedy, too aggressive, and I want to lose 50 pounds in a month. That's when you start saying bye-bye to all that muscle.
The thing I want you to take away from this video is I want you to be in that ideal state. If you're above it, I want you to get down into it. If you're below it, I want you to get up into it. And then once you're into it, you can do your 200, 300, 400, 500 calorie surplus. I think if you're newer to weightlifting, a 500 calorie surplus is good.
So his take-home message is this: try to keep your weight in that ideal growing zone and then add a few extra calories, maybe 200 to 500 above that. And then if you get out of that zone, then do a small mini cut where you diet maybe 50% of the calories less than you're taking. For me at 3,000, it's about 450 less. I'd lose maybe a pound a week roughly. So a slow loss and slow gain. So how is that different for me? There's really no big difference. The only difference is I wouldn't go for 200 to 500. I would say take the smallest surplus you can do that gives you energy and that you slowly gain muscle without gaining a whole bunch of fat from where you're at a comfortable level at. If it's 9%, great. If it's 15, great. If it's 17, great. Okay? Not much difference. Hope this makes sense.
I hope that helps shed light on what you should do. And again, it depends kind of what your state is. And are you 20% body fat? Are you 12? Are you 5? Because my answer is going to depend on those things before I say you should do this or this or this.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it clears things up on if you should bulk or cut. GregDoucette.com for coaching. Greg Doucette, IFBB Pro. Blooping up 2 videos. And until next time, I'm out to go to the dentist. I'm late.